Good morning. All right, so this one for me is going to be a toughie because I feel like when it comes to, I'm going to call it responsibility in relating, I feel like I've learned a structure throughout my life that has actually been the opposite of how to closely relate to another. And so I want to sort of parcel through this idea of how to responsibly relate, responsibly communicate, because I feel like our ideas of how to do that as conditioned by society are a little bit off, and they're leading us to constantly miss the mark and then not be able to know why or how we got into that predicament. So I'll try to set the scene. It seems as though each one of us has our own personal perspective on the world, on reality. We have, and as that presents itself, it presents itself in a stance in how we approach the world, in the ideas and how they form within our minds, our motives behind doing anything, our actions and our behaviors. We have these individual, again, stances that are attached oftentimes to our identity and who we believe to be and how we believe to be in relation to the world. Now, when we take that identity into a relation and we communicate through a relation, it looks as though we are communicating our stance and then waiting to be affirmed or rejected. So we're either going to be closer in communication or closer in relation, or we're at war. There is no nuanced in between. And so it seems that the way that we are approaching our relations is to try to find ways to either gather or to fight. And I think neither of those are real types of relation. And what I mean by that is when you are expressing yourself and you have your stance, it should be presented in a way that is always going to be limited. It's just your perspective, your ideas, but it's also you're using the logos to dwindle it down to a very understandable nugget for the other person. And then the other person is supposed to the logos is supposed to awaken something in them, inspire something in them to play with and reanimate into something new or an understandable nugget for both them and potentially you, because they're sharing a mix of both your and their perspective. And it's supposed to be a creation of something brand new. And I find that when we are in relation with other people, we are very much ignoring that reanimation in order to protect our identity. And I think in protecting our identity and not letting go of the what I know to be true, we're not properly relating to the other and thus becoming in relation and community with the other. And I think that there is a inability to take responsibility that keeps showing up, because if we were to take responsibility for how our stance impacted the environment, I think we wouldn't get stuck in the staying in our identity and in our stance and just trying to fight or to affirm. Because when you think about, I like to think about it like this, you come into a situation and you're saying the nicest thing that you can to someone else, trying to do the right thing. And instead of like, once you're done saying the right thing, once you're done saying the right thing, instead of seeing how that is affecting the other person or the environment or like your own body, you're instead trying to affirm to yourself, oh no, I was in the right here. Like I did say the right thing. And so you're going almost like backwards in time. You're focusing on that which is not constantly still has the potential for living. You're going back to this like dead stance, this like idea, and you're trying to solidify it, draw a line in the sand, which immediately just separates you from not just the other person, but also the environment and the present moment. And so in order to relate properly with the moment and the other person within that moment, there has to be a release of that need to be right, the need to prove the identity, the need to keep the same stance. It needs to be a letting go, a coming off of, in order to look into the present moment, see the world as it's presenting itself to you, and then take responsibility by either making a proper judgment or adjusting your stance or what have you. But it seems as though we are constantly trying to communicate with one another via identity to identity and me against you, and never on trying to get on the same page. We're always on different pages trying to convince each other that our page is the right page. And I think if you truly believe and have faith that you have presented yourself in a way and your ideas in a way that is as honest and true as you can in the moment, you don't need to take the next moment to prove to yourself what you thought was to be true in the last moment. If you believe that what you were doing was from the deepest goodness that you could, then that next moment is purely learning, is purely a learning opportunity to see if it's true, if it is true, if it does, how it does interact with the world. And I think we're missing seeing how our creations are impacting the world, and thus missing how our humanness is existing in the world. We're unable to show up human to human because we're trying to go back to the previous moment. And so how can we actually take responsibility within relating by letting go of this idea that we're always right, or that we need to prove the last moment was coming from a good place? Because if we really believed that, we wouldn't have to prove it. It just would be something that you feel and that you know in your heart. You don't have to prove it to someone else, especially yourself. And so I think it's of the utmost importance to remind ourselves to take responsibility in our relating, so we can actually foster new ideas, new experiences, and change and grow and mature. Something like that. Anyways, thanks for listening.